Hey folks, this is Ben Yessel. I'm going to have probably a fairly busy day tomorrow compared to how many of my days have been. But overall, it should be very doable. This is a little bit more of a general video, of course. Just mentioning some things that are on my mind, I suppose. I was going to go for a walk tonight. Although I didn't do it, I'm going to have to do it tomorrow. Even though I won't be in a mood for it. Should be a good day tomorrow. So, I don't know what order these thoughts are going to come. But if it's makes any difference, by the way, I would have had to probably endure below freezing weather outside, by the way. It is still February, and it's frustrating to always have this really cold weather with no snow. I suppose I could try working out in some way, shape, or form here, but I don't know. Old man is the landlord. Old house. What's all that noise? I'm just doing jumping jacks, dude. I just really want to avoid that whole stuff. But there are ways and means. There's a room farther away from the landlord's room. I could probably do jumping jacks and all that stuff, sit-ups, but it is frustrating. When you're not in a big house in COVID-19 and it's cold, there's only so much you could do. I guess that's the best way of putting it. Maybe just a bunch of sit-ups and push-ups and stuff. Sheesh. It's too cold to go outside sometimes, but we have to go out in the middle of the day to find time, and that's exactly what I'm teaching, by the way, tomorrow. Okay, so again, I might make a few of these. And again, as I mentioned before, my subscribers, they watch my stuff because of what I'm talking about, not because of all the visuals and things. Again, in the future, it's my choice. If I do other stuff, or if I make more things that are more visually oriented, and I've made videos that are more visually oriented before, it's no big deal. It's just that oftentimes I'm my most thoughtful before I go to bed. So you guys are getting a lot of my more heartfelt thoughts, right? So, I know I've been talking a bit about nutrition recently. There's a gentleman who I'm subscribed to, and I try to subscribe to a number of different folks regarding nutrition. Why is that the case? And it's not so much the case with politics or religion. Well, with religion, I already know what I believe, but I certainly I don't really subscribe to religious channels so much. Maybe some, but I already kind of know what I believe, I suppose. Philosophy being a little bit different kind of deal, but anyway. And then politics, yeah, of course, I lean to the right, so I'd probably not subscribe to too many liberals, at least, but there are some. The Young Turks kind of, these terms keep dancing around, and it's very subjective, to be honest. So I could very well subscribe to a number of liberal folks. I have no idea that they're that liberal. Kind of thing. Like NPR, apparently, is a liberal radio station. Really? Whatever. It's just, no. NPR is like Midwest Democrat. It's like very moderate to me. Does not seem liberal at all. Anyway, so, because it's because we have a lot to learn still. It's a science, right? And so, Goji Man, from Britain, is a pretty cool guy. He doesn't mince words. He is very much a vegan. And believe me, there's many things in my mind here, not just this stuff. So, as it so happens, with these folks that are some of the folks that know quite a bit about nutrition. And they still have these differing views about these subjects, the subject matter. And I can't help but mention this other thing here. This being something along the following lines. Well, we're all humans, right? Yet, despite all of us being human, we have these, little differences. Small little differences. Like, gender is we have some people that are guys and some people that are women. And then some people are saying there's other sexes. These days, I don't know. So we have gender that comes into play. We have age. We have different metabolism rates and different fitness levels, right? We have different health conditions people are experiencing. We have different psychological and mental conditions from birth or during life that happens to people. Medications that people take. We have, again, age factors in here. We have exposure to toxins in various places in the world. We also have geography and what's available in the place that people live and their income and the amount of time they have to cook stuff and how convenient food is or not, or do they have refrigerators or not. We have different races, and I know that term race is a very debatable term, but I'm referring specifically to the fact that some of us have actually those very slight actual differences. We call it human variation. The more polite way of putting it is human variation, right? Some of us have very dark skin and flatter noses, broader noses, right? Some of us have Asian eye folds and more, olivish tan skin, rounder faces or square faces, right? High cheekbones. Some of us are very tall, whether or not we have light skin or dark skin. Some of us are very short. Some of us are very stocky. Some of us are very thin. Some of us are very blonde, blue-eyed. Some of us are very red-headed or freckled or have green eyes or hazel eyes or brown hair or curly hair, straight hair. Some of us have longer noses. Some of us have such long noses that we look like Pinocchio. Some of us are very adapted to high elevations. We have a lot of red blood cells. Some of us are, more in the brown skin-toned area. Not quite very dark, not quite tan or lighter. And all of these other human variations, like having lots of chubby fat beneath our cheeks. And some of us up in toward the northern areas, toward the polar areas, Siberia and stuff. And why am I going into depth about this? Because all of these things and other things I'm not even thinking of, they all affect what we should be eating and how much we should be eating, like what quantity, and so on and so forth, right? Yeah. So there's always the question: is one size fits all the best? Is one diet the best, or is it a little bit more this kind of thing that it depends? It all depends. Well, considering the variety of people in the world, and that there are these slight little differences, between us, all of us, even over time as we age. Yeah, I'm inclined to think that it just all depends. But I think there is kind of like a bullseye kind of thing going on with regard to our diets. But my bullseye isn't going to be precisely the same as someone else's. But they're going to be pretty darn similar, right? A lot of times. if we keep hitting the bullseye, so to speak, every single day, or if we're not too far away from it, we're going to live to a ripe old age. If we're getting out toward the edges of the bullseye or just completely missing the target whatsoever, we might not live all that long. You know, this analogy, I guess, has its good points and its weak points, but by all means, doing heroin is probably something like shooting yourself with the arrow rather than having you go to the target. So there's some things that can drastically change one's success, so to speak. So, you know, I think a lot of folks, by the way, when they're watching these channels, like nutrition channels, they just won't comment. Because they're, you know, it's really unfortunate. It's really sad. I've always liked comments on YouTube because it lets you socialize with people on some level. On some level. People that you wouldn't otherwise meet in real life. And I always think that YouTube should be more accessible socially, rather than the opposite. I've always felt that way. But it's because of the wicked world we live in that a lot of people don't see it quite that way. And I do mean wicked. Oh, yes. Very much so. Very much so. Oh, man. Why do you think everybody's so guarded and everybody's so unfriendly? Most people. It's because of how evil the world is. Obviously so. Otherwise, if it wasn't so evil and wicked and cruel, we would be a lot less guarded, we'd be a lot friendlier, a lot more open. So, yeah, with vegans, like I keep finding the doctors themselves, the vegan doctors, they're by and large going to be not too bad to talk to, but they often don't get back to you. Goji Man will some of the time. That's always been a big thing for me. Some people just won't get back to you because they just won't. Some people will. But it really is very. You feel very much a part of the channel when the channel's creator responds to what you're saying, especially when they do so in a nice way. But you know, it's part of the whole YouTube experience. That's what, you know, that's why we like YouTube a lot of times. We feel a part of a community. You know, I have all these channels I've subscribed to, and honestly, most of them I just don't watch very often. I have over 1,000 YouTube channels, and it's just probably the numbers that keep growing. And I got to figure out some different way of doing it. Sometimes doing things. Sometimes, but you know, I've tried unsubscribing from stuff I don't see. But whenever I go through that train of thought, it's like, oh, I really do want to see this do but maybe not right now. Oh, I really do want to see this stuff, but maybe not right now. So it's always that way. It's like, oh, you know, okay. But that's honestly like, you know, it's the notification bell thing, right? That's what really matters. Anyway, it's just the way YouTube is set up, I suppose. But I wish it was the case that, people would not have these food group battles, so to speak. Because, what do I mean when I say this stuff? What do I mean? How many food groups are you talking about here? Well, and like, you know, what do I mean? What do I mean by battles? Well, I think we all kind of understand at this point that vegetables are good for you. And you should probably eat a lot of them. Not like a ridiculous amount every day, but you should probably be eating your vegetables. If there's any disagreement with that, it's like the slight, they have a lot of, you know, anti-nutrient stuff going on. That kind of stuff. It's so ridiculous. It's so stupid. I'm not sure that, I doubt that you can absorb everything in the, it's like there's, depending on if it's cooked or if it's raw, you're going to get probably not everything in the plant in terms of its nutrients, but you probably can get most of it, a lot of it at least. It's kind of a question of what your body needs. If your body needs a lot of certain nutrients and not as much of others, it'll just excrete what it doesn't need. My doctor, when I was younger, once told me that I'm doing just fine with all of my nutrients and levels. For the most part, even vitamin D was not too bad, and often vitamin D is the one thing that we could all use a little bit more of. But especially in colder climates, especially when it's not as much sun, looking at us Western Washingtonians right now. But he said vitamin C was very high. This was, I think maybe I was in my early 20s or something like that. I was eating a lot of oranges, drinking a lot of orange juice. That's why my vitamin C was so high. Well, back then, and I'm sure it was great for me, but maybe all that sugar wasn't so great. But anyway, I mean, it's just that it's okay. There's your dairy group, right? Your meat group, all the different kinds of things that are chicken, fish, egg. There's the beans, there's the nuts, and there's the seeds, there's different kinds of vegetables, there's the fruits, grains, and sweets, junky stuff, or junk food stuff, or whatever, snacks, and supplements, and and those are your basic, I guess, food groups or types of food, I suppose. But I haven't heard anybody that defends dairy, like Dr. Berg, is basically, it's not like only dairy. It's like, have some high quality grass-fed cheese and stuff. But it's a fairly weak, there's not a lot of people supporting dairy. So really there isn't. So it's like, it's not a priority. So but people don't seem to attack the dairy thing so much that are vegans. Why is that? Because you're not killing the animal when you have dairy. You're just drinking its milk. But the animal survives. So a lot of this anti-meat thing is because people don't want animals to be killed with meat. But this thing keeps coming back. It's like, look, killing an animal to eat its meat is just fine morally, right? It has never been an issue with God. If it's never been an issue with God, then it should never be an issue. Now, if you kill an animal, you actually kill it, and you waste the meat, that's not right. Of course. Just look at the way the American Indians, the way they hunted. That's the way to do it. Now, is it better to hunt and eat it, or to buy it in the grocery store? Either way, you need to eat what you buy, but sometimes you get rotten meat, or sometimes you just, ugh. But, I mean, okay. Vegans that see meat eating as being sinful are really messed up. It's a really messed up way of being. And even though I mentioned Goji Man earlier, even though Goji Man doesn't really, it's not a moral, but how can I put this? It's a health reason why he's talking about it. It's not like he's saying it's part of the 10 Commandments. It's not he's saying that it's immoral, right? But there's kind of anyway, I don't know if it's sort of Goji Man, but see, there's a spectrum, right? There's like kind of this, it's not really a 10 Commandments thing, but it's not just about your health. It's actually kind of both. It's like, it's a more ethical way of being to not have meat. No, there's nothing about ethics here. Now, you can talk about factory farming, how bad that is. Sure, that is bad. That's why do I buy grass-fed meat? Why do I buy organic chicken and pasture? It's not just because it's healthier. It's because I'm trying to only support farms that are treating animals well. Oh, but they still get killed. Do they still? Well, yeah, yeah. Of course they do. Otherwise, I wouldn't be buying it, would I? It wouldn't even be here if they were just living their sweet lives. I'd be living in India. You know, in India they don't. They let cows live and they just have their milk, you know. That's fine. It's India. I'm just saying, I'm not Indian. This is not my culture. I eat my meat, so shoot me, you know. It's, anyway. It really is vexing. You know, all the other debates, you know, the fruitarians and, you know, all the other diets, you see a lot of, you know, eating nuts and seeds is very pro. Sometimes occasionally you get the anti-bean thing, you know, but it really, the crux of it is, and most people know that fruitarianism is messed up too. It's still a kind of a vegan versus carnivore argument, which never seems to go away. And it's silly because, why is it silly? Because we know we should have mostly plant foods and a little bit of animal foods, comparatively. If you have a little more animal foods, we might not live quite as long, but it's not going to really affect us too much if we're getting the high quality stuff. Will we have health complications if we have too much animal foods? Well, it kind of depends on how much is how much. I mean, if it is too much. You know you're eating too much animal foods when, you feel really lethargic all the time because you had really heavy food. And if you're getting a little bit older, maybe you almost had a heart attack. Maybe at that point it's time to cut back on the steak and eggs. But then, of course, everyone's saying, no, it's not due to steak and eggs, it's due to sugar, right? Sugar is the... Well, of course, sugar, yes, absolutely. I get it, too. Sugar is probably worse than... It's like... Which people tend to overeat animal foods? It's very calorie rich. Well, if anybody's overeating animal foods, like steak, eggs, but it's steak, definitely. And things like that. Baby back pork ribs. You know, sausage, bacon, corned beef, pork, beef, that stuff. The heavier meats. And the corn-fed stuff especially. Which people, and all the, you know, the cold cuts and stuff, who's overeating that stuff? Well, obviously it's people like Hulk Hogan. Why? Because Hulk Hogan's 7 feet tall. And he's got a ton of muscle. For very big, large, muscular guys, I do mean big and large and muscular. Do you honestly think that 99% of those guys that have all that muscle, do you think that they're totally 100% good to go on a vegan diet? No, it's insane how there are some people that are more muscular that can survive on a vegan diet. Vegans are slim. Vegans are slim. Slim. They're lean if they're active, at least many of them are lean. Vegans are they're not that big. There are some that are stronger and bigger, but that's only because they're naturally that way. But vegetables do not make a person like boom, like really super strong. They make you healthy. They don't make you freakishly strong. Being freakishly strong and unnaturally muscular for your size, that's not necessarily a healthy thing. Even for guys that have very big bone structures and can support that kind of muscle. There's a point at which you can overdo it. Sorry, I'm mentioning Brian Shaw in this case. I love Brian Shaw. I love the man. It's just that, have you seen how big his arms are? They are muscle. That's all muscle, right? But it's just, I have never seen anybody who has bigger arms than Brian Shaw. Mark Henry. Those guys are just, they're gentle giants, but honestly, like, talking about, like, Juggernaut from, like, X-Men or something, those guys are juggernauts. They could punch a hole through a wall, I'm sure. Like, you get toughened at the bones, I guess. But, yeah, I mean, that is just insane. Like, how, So if anybody's eating too much meat, poultry and stuff like that, eggs, it's going to be those kinds, that size of a guy with that amount of muscle. Absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody else will know. I mean, we will know when we've had too much. When we're like, okay, I've had enough chicken, or I've had enough steak, or I've had enough pork chops, or lamb chops, or whatever it is. And if we'll learn that at some point in our lives. If we don't, we'll be going to the hospital at some point. That's the way it is. So it's just, but what really bothers me again is it's that people have to argue in a negative way about it. We can't just discuss things like nice, rational beings. No. It has to be, you blockhead. Why the devil are you doing this? Slight critique here with Goji Man. If you try to be very direct, because that sometimes if you're conveying information, you're trying to help somebody, you would think, oh, it's just better just cut to the chase. Boom, this is what you do. No, we're not totally in agreement with nutrition. It's the same deal with talking about religion or politics or anything like that. If there are differing opinions, when you just say stuff like, oh, nope, this is what's wrong, this is what you gotta do. Is that the only way that I could improve my health? Or are there other things I could do? Other kinds of foods that I might like more than these that might work better? There really are. It really is something that it's not just. It's up to us still what we will believe. It's not something that's crystal clear. Joel Fuhrman with nutritarianism. Why is it that most of us are not nutritarian? Well, he's talking about 30 to 60% of your diet calories come from vegetables. Who does that? That's practically vegan. That is like literally a salad for every meal, and then everything else is just little stuff on top of the salad. Everything else, a little bit of seeds, a little bit of nuts, a little bit of fruit, just a little bit, a little bit of beans, probably hardly any grains, and whatever animal foods you have on top of that are just negligible, and some water, and that's just have a salad, every single meal, just salad. And some cooked greens. That's nutritarianism. Who eats like that? Who does? It's and it's again, those bigger guys are not having it, man. I kid you not. The Hulkster, you saw that. I guess you remember the Hulkster. What was his name? I remember. He had his reality show. That woman came in one time and she kind of threw out all of his hot dogs and things, which admittedly weren't very healthy, right? But she threw out the hot dogs and she put in all these greens. He opened the fridge and he's just like, oh. Now, I never know how much that stuff is scripted or how much he knew about it beforehand. These reality shows are just really cheap, But, it's a classic example of what happens when you have these really big muscular guys. And they're, contending with these really slim vegans. They're often who? Are they often men? No, they're often women. And then there's this, all of, this stuff about these links between getting enough cholesterol and stuff like that. I guess the whole thing is associated with cholesterol. And these kinds of things that come from eggs and fish and poultry and meat, they help you have enough testosterone, or they help you produce testosterone. And these other hormones that you need to, for your brain and for your reproductive system and stuff. And all these other things. And if you don't get enough of these, kinds of animal foods that help you produce hormones, you're going to, low libido, or just, you're going to have other issues with health. You're not going to think very clearly. You're not going to have a lot of energy, right? So on and so forth, and zinc, and selenium, And so what are vegans going to say about this? Well, you get enough, whatever, from nuts. You don't need the animal food. They're going to say something, right? There's always something. It's always something. So my question is, at what point can you just we can still have this discussion, but, it's not like we're going to immediately jump on the bandwagon of some new diet because somebody's saying it's the same deal with religion and politics. It's always this way. If you're talking about something, you just need to say, well, this is what's going on with me. And I'm not completely ignoring you, but this is, it just involves being considerate. Who of us are more considerate when we're talking about these kinds of things? I would hope that all of you guys are on some level very considerate, but it becomes increasingly difficult to be considerate when there's just this real, one way, it's my way or the highway. All right, catch you guys later. Take care. Bye.